This episode of Heroes of the Horn is brought to you by Craig Wallace and Ashaman of the Black Tower. May the light shine on you.
Welcome to Heroes of the Horn, a Wheel of Time podcast. I am Sir Matt.
And I am Sir Ezra. Welcome to our Wheel of Time book club. The horn has sounded, and we have answered the call. Today we are covering The Eye of the World, chapters 27 through 34.
Yeah, man, it is getting good. As that's all I can say. As we continue to dive into the series, I am just becoming more and more gripped into this story.
Yeah, it just gets better and better. We were actually talking just moments ago before we started, like I told you I'm into book 4 now again, but going back to like some of the stuff that happens later on in this book and then even the next book, I'm just like, I keep telling you I can't wait for you to get to certain parts because I just want to discuss and like have these epic moments, but I gotta take my time, like right now, like Matt and Rand, I gotta push through all these villages. I mean, can we just get to Camelin? Like, it's where we're headed. But yeah, dude, it's getting good. And honestly, some really interesting things happen. I kind of forgot, like he really, like the story escalates, your characters really get developed pretty quickly, but at the same time, you know, you have such a long time for them to go through even more character development. It's just, I don't know. It's really cool, and I'm pumped to see what you thought about these chapters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I mean, again, you know, I said this last week, but or last time, I should say. Man, it feels like, you know, not too long ago we were just waiting around for Beltane, gonna go, and now here we are. Now everyone's all split up, and we're into separate groups here, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. Is now we got like essentially 3 groups going on. You got Matt and Rand, Perrin and Egwene, Nynaeve, Lan, and Moraine. And so we're kind of bouncing back and forth between their chapters now that they're all not together. So in the chapters we're discussing today, you know, it's like, well, here's what's kind of going on with these people. Here's what's going on with these people. Here's what's going on with these people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and that's sort of you actually asked me too, like at some point do characters kind of crisscross back and stuff like that, and it's like, yeah, but by the end of the series they're all over the map, and it is really interesting who they interact with and stuff. So yeah, it's because right now, you know, our band is split up, and we have to imagine that hopefully they're each trying to get back together with the other. They're like, either do we wait, do we press on, do we stick with the plan originally, or are they going to meet us up in, you know, Camelin? What's going to happen? So yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Well, Ez, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Just trying to, like keep. It's funny for me when I come back to this because like I am just for my own purposes and just to keep sort of everything fresh and think about where things are going. Like I'm pushing ahead in the series, and then to come back here it's really interesting. I'm almost like, each time we come back and do an episode, I'm combing back through because I'll re-listen to the chapters, re-expose myself there, and it's just great. It's really good. So it makes me feel good. It's something we were talking the other day, being in all the different fandoms that we are in with other podcasts and stuff. It's kind of crazy. I'll say this, like I have to really get geared up, and like all day today at work, I was just thinking, you know, Wheel of Time, and I'm just thinking like these characters and where they're at and what they're going through. And it's also crazy because like I start to see so many different connections between these different fandoms, you know, between Game of Thrones, between Wheel of Time and Lord of the Rings, like, and even Narnia. Like I'm getting a little like, I don't know, like overload sometimes because I see different like patterns and themes and stuff. And it's why I love stories so much. So it's great. I don't know. I guess I'm doing well, and I'm stoked. We had some bad weather here like last week actually, and so you know, I was like, and more coming later this week. So like the wind, the winter storm is here. They talk about winter in this book a lot, and how, you know, it's like, seems like everything's sort of like, I don't know, crops aren't growing, things aren't the way they're supposed to be, the weather's all jacked up, and I kind of feel like in Ohio sometimes, it's just up and down. It's just all over the place. You know this. You used to live here. Like, it's just crazy. So it went from being like super cold and snowstorm to like, 40, 50 degrees. It's just crazy.
Yeah, people ask me, like, what's winters like in Ohio? And I was like, well, at first you need to understand how weather works in the Midwest. Everything hits the Great Lake and just amplifies. So hit the Great Lakes and amplifies. I mean, that's why in spring and fall you can start out and it's 35, and then come around 2:00 it's 70. I mean, you almost need a winter coat in the morning and then t-shirt and shorts by about 2:00. It's crazy. People from certainly where I live in the West Coast, it's just so different in the weather patterns. So yeah.
That's good. So, hey, how you been? I heard, you got some upgrades going on over there, and
it's true. I did my internet. The internet guy came today. The CenturyLink guy doubled our internet speed, so that's great. Speaking of which, should we kind of tell people what we've got planned? With a lot of our podcasts. Yeah, so we're gonna be introducing video. We're going to start recording all of our podcasts across the board on video as well. So for those of you that would prefer to say watch it on YouTube, you certainly can. Just webcams of Ezra and myself. So you'll have that available to you as well if your preferred platform is YouTube. Right now all of our episodes are on YouTube. They just post a stock image. It just goes straight from Podbean, who's our provider, and goes there. So whether you like to listen on iTunes or Stitcher, some people do use YouTube as their search feature, and they kind of like to watch or have that there. But you will have that option as well. We're rolling it out across all of our shows, and so probably sometime by the end, certainly of next month, I'm getting ready to go on vacation for a couple of days, going to Las Vegas, not because it's Valentine's Day weekend. It just happens to be Valentine's Day weekend. My girlfriend has family there. And so we're going to be doing that. And then we get back. We're going to start, Ezra and I have already been working on, overlays and all that kind of stuff to make it look good. And so Heroes of the Horns will be coming as well here in the next couple of weeks. We don't have a firm date exactly yet, but it is coming. So certainly stay tuned for that. And that'll be cool for those of you that would prefer that want to watch us. Watch us on YouTube.
I thought it was really important that, when Sir Matt says to make it look good, I asked him if there was an overlay that would just like cover over 75% of my camera feed.
Yeah,
just show off the books, buddy.
Yeah, I'm wondering. Yeah, I was wondering. Is there a way to just incorporate Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio's faces over ours? Right? Is there some sort of feature or effect that could do that, or perhaps shave off about 40 pounds? That'd be great if we could find that. So.
Oh, dude, yeah, I think it's gonna be a lot of fun, and like what'll be neat is all the books I have behind me. I like to kind of pull those off, and you'll hear me sometimes if you listen close on the podcast. Like we're flipping through pages. I have the actual book. Sir Matt's got what do you got? A Kindle? What is it?
I have it on my laptop in front of me. I do have and I do have a Kindle as well. So that's or sometimes I have it on my phone.
Yeah.
So that's certainly where I have it. I have it in front of me on a Kindle.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So, anyways, I just think it'd be kind of neat because I've gotten into a little bit of an obsession, and I have to tell folks about this. So, and this, Sir Matt. Like, I have been going to every half price I can here in Ohio, and I may be traveling out of state. Okay, to go get these hardback editions of the Wheel of Time series. Like, they're reprinting stuff and they're making it in this whole new. Like, they have new covers now. Have you seen the new covers, by the way, for all the new books?
I have. They're cool. I still love the original artwork.
Yeah.
But I use the Kindle version anyway. So but I do like that old school art style.
Yeah, and I just like having it on my shelf, and I'm absolutely crazy. I will get the hardback edition so I can just keep it on the shelf. I might every once in a while, I like to when I'm having my moments, I'm walking around, pacing. I like to pull it off the shelf and just, gently flip through the book, okay, and go to a passage or whatever. But then I got the paperback versions, which that was where I first started to notice that they were changing the covers, because I wanted to get all of these paperbacks. I had some that were like super old and falling apart. But then I was like, no, I just want to get new ones, clean, crisp, and make my notes and everything for the podcast and have it all in one spot. So, yeah, that's been kind of fun. But I am just like, I have to go get as many of these, editions as I can. Why? I have no idea. I have no idea why. I'm obsessed with the art, with the covers and the book, and just having them. And so, somebody like saw a picture of my, the growing collection, and they're like, why do you have 2 and 3 different, versions of this book? And it was like, it was on sale. What do you want? 10%, 20% off. I was like, have to, got to get it. Mm-hmm. So anyways, it'd be kind of cool to see all of that. And then hopefully as we get more stuff on the show, we'll have things to kind of display in the background, and everything. It'll be, I think it's gonna be really neat, and I'm just kind of excited for it. And it's another way to interact. You can just leave comments. You can do, timestamp something on YouTube as well, and have fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's gonna be cool. I'm certainly looking forward to the YouTube aspect of it. We'll now be able to do live streams. We can on Twitch or our Facebook page, group, YouTube as well. A live stream there. So it's gonna be really cool, really nice, just being able to take the show into new, open it up to more people, really, more people, different audience, and give you guys more content in a new kind of cool, engaging way. So
yeah,
certainly,
yeah. And if people are asking us, why did you guys decide to do this? I mean, it's a part of the pattern. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was, it's like Moraine says, it's a part of the pattern, Lan. All right. So we did it because, the wheel weaves as the wheel wills. So here we are. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Let's move over to the village council though. And only really 2 things I want to talk about today, which would be that leaked photo. I had to tag you in that. I saw that on Instagram, Twitter. I guess it's a leaked photo, and correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody else saw this, on social media, but it looked like it was a set photo from the Wheel of Time production.
Mm-hmm. That is certainly what it looks like.
Yeah, I kind of couldn't believe it. It looks like it is, and I guess, I don't know, it's not even really spoiler, I don't think. There's 2 characters in it. There are multiple characters, and one of them is Rand, one is Matt, and it looked like it was those 2 standing there and really cool looking clothes. So it's really hard to see. It's like dark.
It's kind of dark. It looks to me like it takes place right after the Trolloc attack.
Mm-hmm.
Because you would have to imagine that it would be early in the series, but it is certainly the actors that they have cast as these 2. Now it could be something incredibly doctored. I mean, somebody could have done that, but to me it does look like a leaked photo, which is cool.
Yeah, it was just kind of neat just to see, like, oh my gosh, this is happening. It's like, here we go.
And it doesn't mean that it's actually, it could be principal photography. You see that a lot.
Sure.
Hey, stand here. Then they throw a green screen up, in front of a green screen, and then they'll, concept art, whatever. Is this the clothing, that style that they're going to go with? Because I don't know that are they filming it? Has it been announced that they've started filming? I know they certainly have the cast, and the cast has been together. There's a picture of them on Instagram. Yep. And so that could be what is, like they do it a lot where they bring people in, hey, try on this. I remember back, oh man, when was it? It's Justice League, or it might even have been Batman versus Superman, when they had Jason Momoa come in. I think it was Justice League, like very early, and they had Jason Momoa come in, and he was standing there, and they had him like obviously trying the armor. This was way before it was actually anything was really filmed, but they did release a picture of him in the Aquaman armor on Instagram. I remember it said like Unite the Seven, like the 7 Seas and all this stuff, because it was like a big tease for Justice League, which was like 2 years out from even releasing. And so like clearly they weren't filming it then, but they had him come in, and they did the same thing with Ben Affleck. There was a shot of him with the Batmobile and for Batman vs Superman that wasn't even in the movie at all. But so they do that a lot. Obviously they have their cast. Now let's try stuff. And sometimes they take these pictures. And so I think that's what this is. I don't know that this is from an episode, but
Yeah, it was, like as you say, like the costumes and what it's going to look like and all that kind of stuff is super important. So I could totally see that just being, them trying to get a look or a feel for maybe even a set, or I don't know if they're that far along or what the deal is, but it looked cool and it was exciting. I think her name, who is it? Rosamund Pike, right? She's playing Moiraine. They had her and the rest of the cast were holding up their scripts, and so it looked like I don't know if they took those photos a while back, and then now we're just hearing about, we're just now seeing some of the titles for the first episodes, because that's kind of what they're showing us is the title, and then this is episode 1, episode 2, and they're just it's pictures of the cast just holding up their script. So I feel like that's stuff they've saved and they're just now posting. So I really don't know. We don't really know. I don't where they're at on this. And if folks do, and you want to send us a message about it, that'd be great. thehornofvalir@gmail.com. Send it to me. I'd love to talk about it on the show if anybody has some insider information. You know what? Here's the thing. If somebody's on set and they want to email us and let us know what's going on, or send us some top secret stuff.
Yeah, let us know.
I mean, let the wheel weave, man. Let's go.
Yeah, you want to send us some insider information, we're fine with that.
We're going to call you a dark friend for sure, but I mean, we're going to take your intel. So, but yeah. So that was kind of neat, little excitement. Another thing, we always go over the poll here, and I'm going to ask Sir Matt this one. So, would you rather have the power to talk to wolves, or learn how to channel the power?
Wow. Well, I don't know, man, because they talk a lot about how Moiraine talks a lot about how men channeling the power is not really that good of a thing. And so right now the power to talk to wolves seems a little more useful and a little less dangerous. So,
yeah. And that was something, Lord James Hunter kind of mentioned that he said he would roll the dice and go with the one true power. Maybe I won't go crazy, right? Is sort of his thought. Lady Amanda kind of said she wanted to be Dr. Doolittle, and she'd go with the wolves and talking to them. Mm-hmm. Lady Heather said, talking to the wolves would be cool, but it would be really cool to kind of be able to wield the power, channel the power, and you could do so much more with it. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting, and we learn about Elias, this character who can talk to wolves, and his eyes are glowing, and just sort of a interesting guy, really. So I can't wait to talk more about him. But yeah, these powers are starting to emerge, and this is one of the reasons why folks know that we also cover Game of Thrones and Star Wars and other things. But like, I love this series for this reason, because we're in it, man. Like, right out the gate in this book, like, we've got powers that we can use. Like, let's go. I mean, it's awesome. And sometimes it's not even necessarily that you have to learn it. It's like, because of need and necessity, these things are thrust on you. Like, the wheel is weaving and you just have to go with it. And even though you may try to get out of what your destiny or whatever, it has ways in which it's going to bend you back in, and you're compelled almost in a sense to adopt some of these new gifts and take them on, these powers, and use them for good. And our characters want to. They're good, good guys, and well, as far as we know, right? But yeah, it's just really cool. I don't know. I love that right out the gate here. Almost, we're like midway through the book, and we're learning that you can do this thing, this ancient thing of talking to wolves. And it does sort of remind me, right, of like the Starks and having that ability to be a warg. And I'm just sort of like, this is interesting. And it's something that they almost deem Elias, well, and actually I'm not sure, I don't want to jump ahead and be too spoiler-ish here, but there's there's more to this ability than just that, so that, I guess that's all I'll say. And you can probably guess that each of these, powers and the things that we're going to learn about are just going to continue to grow and have more dynamics to them. But
you could almost say that the power is a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Wow.
I'll stop.
Yeah. Okay.
We just lost half our listeners. Like,
they're gone.
We're done.
They're gone.
And we're done. We're done. Yeah.
Well, hey, it's part of the pattern. So
it is.
Okay. But no, yeah. So there we are. I mean, just a little. I would love for people to weigh in. I think the results came out Yeah, it was like
10-2.
10-2. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, channel the power. People are more interested in channeling the power. And it would be interesting to sort of gather from men. Like, would you risk it? Like, if you've heard about, as Lord James Hunter mentioned, like going crazy, the possibility that you could go mad or whatever. Like that, would you risk that?
Well, I mean, the one person we've seen use the power so far, Luce Theron there in the prologue, man, he kind of seemed like he went crazy and killed his wife, Eliana, and
and, he did,
so.
and I shouldn't even laugh. It's like crazy. I mean, he's known as a kinslayer. Like it's like he went nuts. So, but could you do some good with it before the end? I mean, or whatever. I don't know. It's risky. So.
I don't know. Okay. All right. Well, hey, let's move on over to the read. I guess it's not really a reread. The recap, I guess we should say.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, this time we were in chapters 27 to 34. So, chapter 27, Perrin and Egwene spend time with the traveling people. 28, Moraine, Nynaeve, and Lan find the boys had been in Whitebridge. 29, Perrin, Egwene, and Elias leave the Tuatha'an and are chased by ravens. They enter a steading. Chapter 30, White Cloaks attack them in the steading. They fight but are captured. 31, Matt's suspicious nature annoys farmers until they stay with the Grinwells. Chapter 32, an innkeeper tries to steal from Rand and Matt but is prevented by a Darkfriend. They escape when lightning destroys a window. 33, Rand is sick. Darkfriends find them, but they escape. And 34, Rand and Matt see a Myrddraal asking after them. They get a ride to Camelin.
Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it is really two. You have, well, I guess you got three little batches of like splits here, right? You've got
this section,
Perrin and Egwene, and
this section is it's really, this section just happens to be a little more Perrin and Egwene, Matt and Rand, and then there's the one Lan, Moraine, and Nynaeve. And so we're gonna start again. We always do. We do have our three kind of things here. Some world building, kind of a hyper focus point, major plot points. This week might be just a little different because there's not really, honestly, a lot that kind of happens in these chapters. It seems like where we've been before is like every chapter, it's so much bigger and moving us along in the story. But now I think it's not really like we're taking, like 7 steps forward. We're taking 1 step forward here, 1 step forward here, and 1 step forward here. So this week might just feel a little different, but we're still going to cover all of the stuff. So.
Yeah, it is. It's sort of, we just get out of Shadar Logoth. Like, it's intense. It's sort of a big moment. Mordith we talked about quite a bit, and who he is and what his evil presence is like, and it's radical. So yeah, this does kind of slow down a little bit. Before we jump too far ahead, though, I am going to pull up some comments that we had from last week, and we can kind of discuss this. Again, our discussion thread is over on patreon.com/The Horn of Valir, if you want to check that out. And so here we go. Just a few comments and things for us to kind of think about. Amanda, let's start with her real quick. Full disclaimer, this is just her this is a deep dive that she took us down here, but she can't help but to think that the Tuatha'an, that when she hears Tuatha'an, she has no clue if that has any relevance for the rest of the series. That there's some she's making a connection between, I should mention this first, Irish and Scottish, I guess maybe like culture or language maybe.
Okay.
Unless the Tinkers turn out to be descendants of traveling fairies, so she's making some connection back to the lore there, and just sort of the wording. And I haven't really looked too much into like why Robert Jordan does name these people the way he names them, if that makes sense. Like, why is it that they're the Tuatha'an? You even think of like we've heard reference of like Aiel people. We've heard like, what is it with the naming system, right? You think of like Camelin sounds a lot like Camelot, right?
Yes.
trying to think. There's a few other ones. We'll get to some other characters later on who are like connected to that Arthur legend type of stuff, and he was big on pulling from legend. So she's looking for a connection there, just in some of how things are pronounced, like Aes Sedai and Aes Sheen. Oh, some of this stuff I don't know. Like, this is interesting. You guys are gonna have to go read this. I mean, because she's just got some interesting word connection here that I would love to dive in deeper. James Nutter mentioned. Let's see. They're just kind of going back and forth on the Amazon show and things that are coming out there. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. Heather Reed was talking about loving the concept of Nynaeve and Moiraine as opposites. I think you mentioned this, right, Sir Matt? Just that we were talking about how they were sitting across from the table with each other, and they were seemingly, Nynaeve is out to kind of not get Moiraine, but really opposes her in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And
and that's kind of one of the focus points that we're going to talk a little bit about. Seems like in each of the three groups, that you've got one person who is, hey, we need to get going, right? We need to get going, and then you have the other people who, with Egwene and Perrin, you have Perrin saying like, hey, we need to get going. Don't you want to become an Aes Sedai? And then Egwene is talking about the way of the leaf, and it's okay. There's a line that we're going to reference when we get to all of this kind of stuff. But then you kind of have Rand and Matt. Matt's, essentially, I think for people who are probably veterans of the series, and people who are just kind of new, and even I think I've heard them kind of say this phrase like Matt's just, Matt's being Matt. Right. I mean, he's this kind of character that, when he seems like he's really at home, right? Like in a pub or an inn. It just seems like where he's really just kind of enjoying himself. He's juggling and having fun, and he seems to get into a lot of trouble.
It's like carefree spirit. Yeah.
Right. And on the other side, you have Rand. Hey, we need to get going. There's and then the same thing with Nynaeve is, Nynaeve is, we need to find Egwene and the boys. And
right.
And Moiraine keeps talking about Tar Valon, and Nynaeve kind of snaps at her. She's like, Tar Valon, Tar Valon, Tar Valon. All you talk about is Tar Valon. And then Moiraine says, when we reach Tar Valon and you begin your training, like just kind of like, like just knowing it's annoying her, it's whatever.
Right.
So I thought that was pretty funny. That does seem to be kind of the theme, really, of the chapters that we're hitting. Just between this kind of break of some characters. Hey, we need to get going to the other characters. We can get there when we get there.
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, that's a good point because, and we'll get there in just a second. But so Aes Sedai was really talking about like opposites and trying to find these whether it be a parallel or opposite or whatever in our characters. And you do have Matt more serious, like we got to keep moving, and then I'm sorry, Rand. And then Matt's sort of like, well, we could stop for a while. I mean, right now he's a little off with this whole dagger situation,
right?
Which we're going to talk about here in a second. But like another one, as you mentioned, was like the idea that Nynaeve is so serious, but then her opposite being, again, from the Two Rivers, like Egwene, right now is having a great time dancing with the traveling people. So it's just interesting. I mean, they do start to kind of develop and grow and mature at different rates and times and stuff. And then you've got Perrin, who's always super kind of serious, but I don't know. Yeah. So anyways, really good connections there. And then also I wanted to mention that Heather did say, and I'm just looking at some of the comments here, that that Robert Jordan did like connecting words with things from real life or even real legend and stuff. So there is something there, and we should maybe dedicate a little bit of time in looking into that. I should definitely look into that more, and if she has some stuff, hopefully she'll send that our way. So thanks again to all of those folks who are in here participating. They're just going back and forth. I mean, it's literally like a discussion thread back and forth, just on ideas in the chapter, things that we should go into more, and all that good stuff. And then in the extended edition, we talked about the Way of the Leaf, actually, and we were talking about just sort of what that means and how attractive that type of lifestyle can be. So when we pick up here again, we are still kind of there. We're about to depart from the Tinkers and move on with Perrin, Elias, and Egwene. But yeah, so there's that. You guys can check that out. Yeah, and I'll go over some of those comments later. It looks like just people were talking about the idea that the way of the leaf is because we kind of pose the question, like, is that something that we can really stick with? You know, it seems like a lot of characters have trouble with their ideas. Like, it's very in a time of peace, it seems great. You know, it's like we're dancing, there's campfires, there's good food, good energy, and that's very attractive to a lot of these younger people. But then, you know, Perrin is he's got his axe there, and he's with Elias a little bit he's on this side of like, well, maybe, you know, if somebody comes at me, I mean, I need to defend myself in some way. Would you not do that? And it's just interesting. It's I love the way Robert Jordan sort of weaves in these different ideas and philosophies and stuff and ways of approaching life. Because they're complete opposites, right? I mean, he's like Perrin is. Well, Perrin is also sort of a peaceful guy for the most part. He doesn't seem like somebody who wants to cause trouble. You probably have already got that vibe from him that he's just easygoing. And so on one hand, you want to agree with these people, but like you start to think, what would happen if somebody attacked my friends? He's already had this attack on his village and his people, and that's upsetting to him. And it's like he wants to defend them. And as a matter of fact, he's doing in his mind right now everything he can to keep his people safe by just leaving. But if he has to sharpen his axe and use it, he will. So I don't know. It was a cool discussion that we kind of had, and if folks want to check that out, it'd be cool.
Yeah. I mean, just going off that, I mean, you know, when Perrin's talking to Egwene, he says, "Do you think we're really safe here? Do you think these people are safe?" You know, he's like, Fades and Trollocs and Darkfriends are after us. You know, we're doing them a disservice by staying here, because we could lead Trollocs and Fades to us, and that could harm these people. Yeah, and there he's showing that caring side. Like, it's also, when you find people like that, I think one of the things they mention is that these are the type of people who, like, you wish. I think Perrin maybe with one hand would love to join them and be in that lifestyle, but he also wants to protect them, as you're saying. And there's an innocence, I guess. Well, it's really not innocence. I don't know what the word is, but it's like pureness or something to the way that they live their life, and you don't want to see that tarnished. And he doesn't want to see that tarnished. And so he feels like, you know, maybe to preserve that, he has to fight for them. But they wouldn't want that. And so it's these conflicting sort of, you know, ideologies, and it's really interesting. So yeah. No, it is, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So again, thanks for all the discussion from all of our patrons and members of the book club. And anybody can go in there and join that. That's it's open. It's free for everybody to go in there and join and leave comments. So if you have thoughts, or if you've got comments on this week's, you know, chapters discussions, just head that way. And actually, I really might be asking for help from some folks, because there's some really interesting things that happen as far as like sequence of events in these chapters. Something tricky that Robert Jordan did that I kind of want to discuss later on. So, but before we do that, let's jump into like sort of our three parts here. We always do, as you say, Sir Matt, like our world building, hyper focused point, and then we'll go over some of the major plot points here. But to start with our world building, if you will, something new that kind of comes up is the steading. What did you think of the steading, and like the idea of well, just I almost spoiled something there. What do you remember or recall from the steading? Gosh, it's so hard. I'm going to spoil it. It's like one of these times I'm going to make a mistake, and people are going to call me out for it. They're like, "You just gave that away." So go ahead, Sir Matt. What do you got on the steading? Well, what do you remember about it?
Well, you know, I mean, Elias says, you know, right as so Perrin finishes his dream, right? He has the dream, which I was going to talk about, but I can kind of hold off on that here for a second. And then, you know, he says, well, perhaps we'll find a steading. You know, trouble never enters the steading, right? But is that necessarily the case? Right.
Well, and it's like, so like the steading, it sounds like a nice place too, right? It's a place where trouble should not be allowed to enter, etc. Um, yeah, it's this place that seems kind of wholesome, and they go there, they feel a difference when they're in the steading. They come in, they again, like the Tuatha on. It's just sort of a cool atmosphere that they go into, and they need this bit of respite too, because they know that, I mean, Elias knows they're being pursued, and so you're looking for like a safe haven. This is one of those.
Yeah,
and what's interesting. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna read just from the passage here. Perrin panted. He was breathing through his mouth, and he was forced the words. If it's really a steading, we'd be safe. No Trollocs, no Aes Sedai. We can just stay here until it's all over. Maybe the wolves won't come here either.
Yeah, which we need to talk about here shortly. Like, just the idea that he's struggling with Elias and his gifts and the wolves and everything that seem to be really nagging at him quite a bit. But we'll come back, I guess, as we talk about Perrin and Elias and the steading a little bit more in a minute. Another interesting thing, and this happened at the end of last week's episode and going into this week again, White Bridge comes up again. It's a place where it's one of these wonders where, like, the power was used to craft something that it seems like it's a remnant from the Age of Legends, and it's really a cool feature in this world. And then really after that, Rand and Matt go from village to village, and as we come across those villages, I'll talk about them. They're really just small villages. Oftentimes, Matt and Rand are saying that some of them in some way look like the Two Rivers. Mm-hmm. And these are villages in the country or the nation of Andor. So there should be some similarity, but I think it's even like the way of life that he kind of comments on it being similar. Farmers and tending their, whether it be lack of crops or just their animals and things like that is similar to what he remembers back home. So that's good, but they are struggling for food and trying to make it, and they're on their own now without any guidance. So definitely a time to really grow up and see these characters kind of develop more. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there wasn't a whole lot. It's not like we came to a big city or anything crazy just yet. We're going to be on the Camelin Road shortly. So
yeah, okay. Well, I have something I kind of pulled out of this just in the world building section here, is songs, right? There's a moment in both of in two chapters where Perrin notices some of the songs that are being sung that the Tuatha are singing, and he's like, oh, I've heard this song, but they call it something different here. And then just a couple chapters later, Matt and Rand have there's just a similar kind of line. And I just thought it was really interesting that's going on, just in his world building, because it just makes it seem like even, you have two of these parties in different spots, and wow, so you're just seeing that the world is different, just depending on where you're at, but there is that familiarity. It's no different than, you think about like our own world, right? It's an elevator or a lift, right? And some of those things where it's the same machine, it's the same thing, but it's just different.
Right, different terminology.
Different terminology for it. I just thought it was interesting because when I got to that part where they talk about the songs and random, I was like, oh, and it just made me think about it. So just some lines here. It's hard to get this is from the Perrin and Egwene. It was hard to get a word with Egwene. Either she was talking with Ilya, their heads together in a way that said no men were welcome, or she was dancing with Aram, swinging around and round to the flutes and fiddles and drums to the tunes of the Tuatha had gathered from all over the world, or to the sharp trilling songs of the traveling people themselves. Sharp, whether they were quick or slow. They knew many songs. Some he recognized from home, though often under different names that they were called in the Two Rivers. Three Girls in the Meadow, for instance, the Tinkers named Pretty Maid Dancing, and they said the wind from the north was called Hard Rain Falling. In some lands, Baron's Retreat, and others, when he asked, not thinking for the tinker has my pots, they fell over themselves laughing. They knew it, but as toss the feathers. Then later in our section here, this is from Matt and Rand. Whenever he paused, voices shouted the names of tunes through the inn. A good many names he did not recognize, though when he got someone to hum a bit of it, he often found he did know the song. It had been that way other places before. Jolly Jame was Ray's fling here and had been Colors of the Sun at an earlier stop. Some names stayed the same, others changed with 10-mile distance, and he had learned new songs too. The Drunken Peddler was a new one, though sometimes it was called Tinker in the Kitchen. Two Kings Came Hunting and Two Horses Running, and several others names beside. He played the ones he knew, and men pounded the table for more. So I just thought that was kind of cool. So the interesting thing is, and I'm sure there are people that have read the series and are series veterans that have probably broken down, this song has all of these names, across the board, and this song has all of these names. And I just thought it was interesting, and that's one of the things that I've been told so much about. Because remember, this is my first read in this series. I've heard, whether it's you or my brothers who have read it or friends who have read the series a bunch of times, is the world building is just something that Robert Jordan focuses on. It's a very big part of this, and so I just thought I just found that kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, it is, and I hate to keep making a connection back to other, fantasy series or whatever, but. Like a lot of them, that is a cool thing. One region may know the song by this title, and another region, knows it as this, and it's sort of that common thread, among people and humanity. And so in Martin's series, in the Game of Thrones, we see that a lot. Like a song, maybe it's not even exactly the song is just called something different, but there's slight variations in the wording. It's a Dornish woman instead of like another woman from another region. And so it's just mixing in, substituting things from your culture into that song that was really good. And maybe that's even in like the idea that a gleeman, as they travel around, if they know the culture or the area, and they can make a better connection, or they can alter the words a little bit to kind of, make it more impactful or what have you. Like that would be interesting. And it's also neat to kind of see like Robert Jordan will weave these threads, and I kind of see it with like Matt and Rand when they go to these other villages, and there's things that they see that they recognize that are common to them, that are familiar, and so it unites the people, even though we're divided into different nations and stuff, and Randland, and it's all this different stuff. Like there's still a lot that they can connect with one another, if that makes sense. And you go back to a little bit of this, the foundation of this continent and this world, and we were talking about Lews Therin and just the breaking of the world, essentially, and how the land, it says this in some of the, right at the end of that prologue, it's talking about how mountain ranges were torn down and new ones came up and all this sort of stuff, and people were just sort of divided and everything, but yet, through all that division, you still have these songs, and you have just a way of life that is common among people, which is interesting. It's so tough because there's so many more of those connections in just the way weapons are made and the way clothes are designed. And there's also differences too, but you can see the influence of ages, long gone, that are still lingering, that are impacting the world. The idea that the Aes Sedai are still in order is interesting in and of itself. But it's a good connection.
And it's interesting also because this is something that we see. You and I read a lot of, obviously, Game of Thrones, and in that series, and I'm guessing, again, first read here, a lot of these chapters you have to look at who the storyteller is. Whose point of view is it told from, because that provides perspective when you have POV chapters. it provides perspective, and sometimes you that's when you can kind of, is the narrator reliable? Are they unreliable? Who are you getting that from? And so I thought it was interesting with these songs, they have different names. Later you could have an event described, and sometimes you'll have, just as we see in our own world, you'll have an event described. Like, take the American Civil War, for example. It's like, jokingly, but serious, it's like, well, is it the Civil War or is it the War of Northern Aggression? Right. I mean, so depending on who's describing it to you, okay, well, that cast a very different depiction of what this event is. And so it's something interesting that I pulled out.
Well, because there will be a lot of conflicts in this series. I mean, we got a long ways to go. And people may look at a historical event and think differently of it, or even this order. Well, you've already heard so many different things about the Aes Sedai, but yet we have an Aes Sedai in front of us who seems to be caring about these kids. But then we have White Cloaks, who you heard were after, air quote, Darkfriends, and really, though, it was hinted at that anyone who could channel the power, possibly. Min, for what she could see, was even a little bit nervous and scared of them, but yet these are supposed to be people who can do good things,
right?
And it's also like then you look at the White Cloaks as an organization, and you sort of say, like, wait, aren't they're children of the light? They're supposed to be. That's a good thing, right? I mean, they are servants of the light, but yet they're so feared, and they almost seem like they cause more trouble, and the people aren't necessarily that happy that they are there and in and among them. So I don't know. That's it'll be interesting to pay attention to those things as we go region to region and nation to nation. And right now we've just been in Andor, Sermat has seen the map. He knows we're going to be
exactly. Well, it's we were told we were going to Aradal, right? Well, we get there and it's Shadar Logoth, which sounds way worse of a place than what it sounds like. Where it sounded like we were going.
Yeah, it's like, hey, hold on a second here. What? This doesn't seem real pleasant,
real friendly.
So. Yeah. All right. Okay. So a couple of things. I'm just going to kind of. There's a few things I guess I want to point out. I want to ask you questions because there's things I thought were interesting. So we know. Let's start with Elias and let's start with Perrin and Egwene. I'm just curious. We because they're leaving those people and they're on the run. Elias seems like he's really pushing Perrin and Egwene, and Perrin is asking him sort of what's going on. Elias is very he's been away from people for a long time. And he says that, and so I don't know that maybe he doesn't trust them as much, but he's also getting this vibe from the wolves about Perrin, which is interesting. Have you caught that? I mean, like that Perrin is there's something up. I mean, he's a little disturbed by the idea, right?
Yeah, and Elias seems to almost have his own code, right? Like we find him, with the Tuathawan, the Tinkers, the traveling people, and. His code even seems to be its own thing, right? He has this line here that I wanted to read, and it's highlight. It's one of those things. If you have a Kindle, where you see that 10,000 people have highlighted it, and it's so many people. Relax, lad. Take life as it comes. Run when you have to. Fight when you must. Rest when you can. And I thought that was like, well, this to me feels like. Just the perfect little line that's going to cover everything we're covering today, because that seems to be, as we've been talking about, the difference in our groups. And Perrin describes him as kind of a strange man. He seems his Elias doesn't really share his feelings. He doesn't ride in the wagons. He prefers to walk. He never really suggests leaving or pressing on ahead. He just kind of has his own kind of mindset going on.
Well, here's a line. So Elias moved with the lazy grace of a wolf, only emphasized by his skins and his fur hat. He radiated danger. He's just, but at the same time, he seems like this calm. He was young and old at the same time. I mean, just interesting how he does almost like embody like he's a wolf. I mean, like just the way he walks, he carries himself, and then as you say, yeah, fight when you have to, rest when you can. I mean, that's interesting. And it definitely conflicted with the Way of the Leaf, and you saw that just in their kind of confrontation. Again, he was welcomed to sit at their fires and eat and everything, but yeah, they definitely believe differently.
Yeah, I mean, look at
yeah.
look at what Perrin's saying. You know, what if the Fade finds us? What's them to keep them from from it? If we just sit here waiting, 3 wolves can't hold them off. The traveling people won't be any help, and they won't defend themselves. The Trollocs will butcher them, and it'll be our fault. Anyway, we have to leave sooner than later. It might as well be sooner. Something tells me to wait just a few days. Something, right? Like,
My gosh,
what are you talking about? Something,
Yeah. I am so glad.
And he says, "Hey, just have some of this pie." It's like, what?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Let me see here. I am so glad that you read that line, though. So, an interesting theory that's out there, and I want, gosh, we haven't got there yet, so I can't talk about it in full. But there is something that seems to be guiding, or I don't know what it is, intuition or whatever, that Elias is like he almost has like a gut feeling, things that sort of lead him in the right direction. And for veteran readers out there, I think you'll know some of the theories or what we're kind of talking about in that, like why he has this feeling and why he just sort of says, there's something that tells me we need to, wait or stay here for a few days and then we'll move on. What is that something? What is it? And we'll talk about it later. We're going to talk about this book. Actually, I think it's going to be next week. But it's interesting, and I almost forgot about it. So I'm really glad you read that, and that it's a combination too, because he is also being informed, as he's already admitted to us, by the wolves, like which is crazy. But if you can channel the power, like if that's something that can happen in this world, well, okay, I guess this ancient thing of talking to wolves might be doable as well. But it's sort of, for Perrin anyways, is off-putting. It's really
yeah. And so so just a little bit after that though is when again, so we're talking about Perrin is like, we need to go, and this is we're going to talk about with Moraine and Rand, or Nynaeve and Rand here as well, with their kind of traveling companions. But I do just want to bring up here really quick, because it just happens right after that, is when Perrin does get Egwene alone, and he starts to talk to her again. He's kind of bringing up some of these same things he was talking to Elias about. Once he managed to get Egwene alone beside a wagon painted in green and yellow, which I just thought that painted in green and yellow, right? That's that from what I've been told, that Robert Jordan, I got to squeeze every detail about the setting I can in there. Enjoying yourself, aren't you? Why shouldn't I? She fingered the blue beads around her neck, smiling at them. We don't all have to work at being miserable the way you do. Don't we deserve a little chance to enjoy ourselves? Aram stood not far off. He never got far from Egwene, with his arms folded across his chest, a little smile on his face, half smugness and half challenge. Perrin lowered his voice. I thought you wanted to get to Tarvalin. You won't learn to be an Aes Sedai here. Egwene tossed her head. And I thought you didn't like me wanting to become an Aes Sedai, she said. Blood and ashes. Do you believe we're safe here? All these people safe with us here. A Fade could find us any time. Her hand trembled on the beads. She lowered it and then took a deep breath. Whatever is going to happen will happen, whether we leave today or next week. That's what I believe now. Enjoy yourself, Perrin. It might be the last chance we have. Mm-hmm. And then she talks just a little bit there. They were all falling too much under the spell of the people, Perrin thought. Elias is right. They don't have to try to convert you to the way of the leaf. It seeps into you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to read that too. That right there is where it's at. It's so intoxicating. It's the way they live their lives, it being carefree and more connected to nature and everything. It's attractive, especially to these young people, and it does just sort of seep into you, and you're like, why would we want to go back to the stresses and the whatever else outside of this? It just doesn't seem as appealing.
Mm-hmm.
So war and strife and all that kind of stuff. It's things that they try to avoid.
There's a line. There's a line really quick. Right after that, their smiles. He's talking about how just their life, right? Their smiles never slip. There was never any hesitation in their invitations to join them for a drink or to listen to music, but their eyes always touched the axe, and he could feel what they thought, a tool of violence. There is never any excuse for violence to another human being, the way of the leaf. Sometimes he wanted to shout at them. There were Trollocs in the world and Fades. There were those who would cut down every leaf. The Dark One was out there, and the way of the leaf would burn in Balzamon's eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what we were saying. Like, he wants to almost sort of like protect them, but at the same time, and he doesn't really say this, but I think it's something that comes up later on. It's just like these people are just like I said, there's a pureness to it, and you wouldn't want to see that disrupted. Mm-hmm. Like these are the kindest of kind people. You would not, like, they're not going to cause you any problems, but yet the Dark One would come here and strike them down, and it just burns him up to think about that.
Yeah, and I think one of the cool thing about what's going on here is you go back to the beginning, first 10 chapters, and it's a little more focused on Rand going through something similar. When the Trollocs attack, we're really more getting everything through Rand's eyes, and we have to leave, Edmund's Field. And so it's him being like, I have to go out on this journey, I have to break away. And Matt and Perrin are there, but this is really what feels more like now we're getting Perrin's and Egwene's reasoning and for leaving, because it's not really the same situation, but it's certainly a similar situation, right? Now they're in this what could be a new life, right? Very easy, very friendly, just drinking and dancing and just being with a good group of people. But there are bigger things in the world. There are more important things,
mm-hmm.
that they have to deal with, and so I think that is one of the things I like about this section with them and dealing with the Tinkers, is that now we're getting kind of their decision. I mean, obviously they've already made the decision to leave Edmund's Field, but now we're getting more so their kind of battle, right? Internal battle with, this is what we have to do, not this is what we want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and there's almost a little bit of an irony in that, just in that. And what you said, I should say, because they are searching for the song, but yet at the same time, they're not worried about all these prophecies and various things that like the goings on, like the politics or the wars among countries and things like that. They seem really disconnected from that, and they are yet people who travel through all of those different nations and lands, but they pay no attention to it, or they may know of it, but they don't. It's not something that they're going to focus on. So interesting. Yeah. But okay, a couple other things about these people. I wanted to make dreams are really important in this series, and we know that Matt, Perrin, and Rand have all had dreams. Did you notice that for the most part, when he was traveling with the Tuatha, his dreams, like they were just, if he had a nightmare, it was just a nightmare. It wasn't a Baalzamon, the Dark One type of nightmare until a little bit later. But at first, like, he's just having these normal nightmares, and that's almost like a blessing, if you will, mm-hmm. Which I thought was interesting. And he does, so all of this stuff with the wolves like starts to really grow in him. He says he has an awareness of them in his mind. He is aware of them and where they are. Like he could point and say they're over there, but yet he can't see them. They're out of sight, but in his mind he can feel them. And then eventually you get to this part where he is talking to Dapple and Hopper and so on, and they're going over what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing, and it was all very clear in his mind. Fervently he wished for Camelin and for Moraine and Tarvalon. Even if there were no answers, there could be an end to it. Elias looked at him, and he was sure the yellow-eyed man knew. Please let there be an end, he's thinking. So whatever this is, it's definitely it's got Perrin worked up, and he's like, these things are, it's just there, it's happening. These thoughts and this awareness of the wolves and their thoughts is growing in his mind. So that's something he's dealing with.
Yeah, and then he goes right into his dream, right? I mean, he goes right into
Yes.
a Baalzamon dream, right? But there's a wolf very prevalent, right, in this dream. It's abruptly the wolf rose, rumbling deep in its throat, the thick ruff of its fur on the neck rising. Baalzamon stepped into the kitchen from the yard. Mistress Luhan went on with her cooking. Perrin scrambled to his feet, raising the axe, but Baalzamon ignored the weapon, concentrating on the wolf instead. Flames danced where his eyes should be. Is this what you have to protect you? Well, I have faced this before, many times before. He crooked a finger, and the wolf howled as a fire burst out of its eyes and ears and mouth and out of its skin. The stench of the burning meat and hair filled the kitchen. Luhan lifted the lid of a pot and stirred with a wooden spoon. Perrin dropped the axe and jumped forward, trying to beat out the flames with his hands. The wolf crumpled to black ashes between his palms. And then it goes on a little bit more after that. But yeah, so now the wolf, right, is part of these dreams he's having.
Yeah, right, and I think again, very cool that he's not looking at the axe. He's not worried really about Perrin. Baalzamon is looking at this wolf, and he's saying, "I've faced this before, and I will again." And so he attacks it. It's almost like I actually kind of look at it as he's a little upset that, oh, so here we go. Now this is something that you have protecting you. Well, I'll handle that too. Even though he has this confidence about him, I kind of see like he's maybe a little taken back. He's stunned by it, and he's looking at this wolf saying, really? Okay. Like because every time he comes to them in their dreams, he's assessing them. He's trying to get to know them. He's learning more about them, and he's starting to distinguish between the three. So now he's really seeing when he visits Perrin, right? He has wolves around him. That's a part of his protection. There's something to that, and there is something ancient to it that he has faced time and time again, and he'll face again. So, and we'll learn more about the wolves as to what they think about Baalzamon later on.
Yeah. Okay. So now, you want to talk a little bit about? Let's talk a little bit about Egwene and Moraine, Moraine and Nynaeve and Lan, about what's kind of going with them.
That's fine.
Because a similar type of thing, right? So they're kind of just they're like, as they're kind of sitting around talking, again, they kind of have a lot of these similar things that everyone's having. Was do we press on? Where do we go? Kind of they're all kind of, it seems like they're all like, what do we do next? Is kind of what everyone's kind of dealing with, and everyone's going to kind of make a decision about what's gonna happen next. So,
yeah.
So this is from chapter 28, Footprints in Air. The cursed woman only wanted to talk about taking her to Tarvalin for training. Moraine would not tell her anything. It was as if she wanted to know so much. How do you mean to find them? She remembered, demanding. As I have told you, Moraine replied, without bothering to look back at her. I will know when I am close to the two who have lost their coins. It was not the first time Nynaeve had asked, but the Aes Sedai's voice was like a still pond that refused to ripple no matter how many stones Nynaeve threw. It made the wisdom's blood boil every time she was exposed to it. Moraine went on as if she could not feel Nynaeve's eyes on her back. Nynaeve knew she must be able to. She was staring so hard. The longer it takes, the closer I must come, but I will know. As for the one who still has his token, so long as he has it in his possession, I can follow him across half the world if need be. And then, what do you plan to do once you've found them, Aes Sedai? She did not for a minute believe the Aes Sedai would be so intent on finding them if she did not have plans. Tarvalin, wisdom. Tarvalin, Tarvalin, that's all you ever say, and I am becoming. Part of the training you will receive in Tarvalin wisdom will teach you to control your temper. You can do nothing with the one power when emotion rules your mind. Nynaeve opened her mouth, but the Aes Sedai went right on. Lan, I must speak with you for a moment. And then her and Lan end up talking. But, again, in what's going on with Nynaeve right now, as I was kind of reading this chapter, and we talked about this last week as well, is I almost feel like she thinks she's not responsible for what happened with the Trollocs attacking, but she obviously feels some sort of responsibility over her people, right? The people
Yeah.
from, Edmonds Field. And, she's in this, I think she's in this position where she was already kind of ridiculed for being, or not necessarily ridiculed, but certainly there's some criticism or she's under pressure. I don't want to say under pressure. I'm trying to think.
Maybe she's under pressure. Yeah.
Because she is such a young wisdom, and people have some skepticism, right, about her ability to kind of succeed in that role. And so I think that's one of these things where, last time we talked about a little bit like the police and the FBI. Right, it's like, well, the FBI show, we're in charge now.
Yeah,
is almost kind of what it feels like, and so I think that's this kind of driving factor for her is she needs to she feels like she needs to prove herself.
Yeah, I'll even add on to that. I mean, the idea too that the village council, or I guess even just people of the village, are a little superstitious, and when crops aren't growing or harvest is not coming as it should, or spring or what have you, and winter conditions are still around, they almost seem to not blame the wisdom, but what is the wisdom going to do about the weather? Like, really? There is a pressure. And then it's already whispered, yeah, she's too young. So there's that. Like, did they choose the wrong wisdom? Is there some like bad luck in having Nynaeve as the wisdom? Now these boys are gone. We were attacked by Trollocs. Are you kidding me? Like, is this all connected? How didn't she foresee this? I don't know. They almost put too much on their air quote wisdom, and it's like could be almost like a blame game, if you will. It's like, where I don't think Tam is like that at all, or most of the village council, but you have Sin Bui and some of those guys who were really picking on Nynaeve and didn't like, just the way she was conducting the women's circle and stuff, and being in her roles as a wisdom. I think they didn't like it. Her stubbornness and the way she speaks back to them and really lets them know what she thinks. It's abrupt, but I think she has to be abrupt because of how they, started to interact with her. And that is all carried over into this issue with Moiraine, as you say. And it's like, I think there is a pressure. That shouldn't really be there. And I'm sure Tam would maybe talk to her and tell her that. But, yeah, she wants to get these kids back. That's her whole thing. She keeps talking about bringing them back. And actually, at the end, let me see, of that chapter, she was talking about how Egwene was one of those girls who she wouldn't, there was such a gift in her and a power that she really wouldn't want to let that go. Nynaeve felt a cold ball in the pit of her stomach. Am I one of those young women you won't give up? We'll see about that, Aes Sedai. The light burn you. We'll see about that. So she still got that defiance, as in, like, I don't know that I'm going to be giving in to the ways of the Aes Sedai and this whole thing. I may still win back Egwene and the boys and get them out from underneath your thumb here. But yeah, and I think Moiraine also kind of knows she has to go slow with this, and you're not approaching a child, really. Nynaeve has been in a position of leadership, and it's different. It's a different thing to kind of finesse.
And I think that's a big part of it too, because this chapter, she talks a lot about, she has to ask them, where are we going next? It doesn't seem like they really include her in their decisions.
Yeah.
And so she's just along for the ride, but she is somebody who's, I'm an adult. I can do what I want to do. And I think I have a good plan. And, you're just basically forcing me to do what it is to go along with your plan. Because and they don't really do it I don't think that Moiraine does. Moiraine sometimes comes across as a know-it-all, just so far from what I've kind of seen. I mean, probably because she actually does know it all. It's really like kind of what it seems like. I mean, she is clearly the one who seems to have knowledge about a lot of the things that they're doing, but she just doesn't. I think for a lot of these people, this is their first time leaving. This is their first time being out. This is their first time doing anything outside of Edmonds Field, and I think that's for Nynaeve, it's a big struggle, because she is, as you said, is more used to that kind of leadership role.
Yeah. So I don't know, something to keep an eye on, and it's something where she's going to have to wrestle with and deal with. But because it's a part of the pattern, man. Like a lot of this stuff it's like this is bigger. It's destiny. It's fate. It's taken over. And but yet they've got choices to make too, which I love. I love having those two elements mixed. But I don't know. Yeah. So she's cool. And there's not much on those characters really. It's just that one chapter where we see them come into Whitebridge and something that Lan says, like there was a half man here, like a Murdral was here, and so this is serious. We know that these boys are, being pursued. We have to go to the one that we can find, and that's pretty much it. So, next, I wanted to ask you one more thing before we jump to Matt and Rand, because it's in the very next chapter after Whitebridge. Let's see, it is what chapter is this? So it's Eyes Without Pity, and this is where Elias is. So this is chapter 29. They're kind of pushing. He's pushing them. There's this urgency that he has, right? And eventually, you kind of figure out, and the wolves kind of fill Perrin in on some of what's happening behind them. But ravens, what did you think of this whole scene where, like they slaughtered the fox, like when they would come across these dark ravens and sort of they're mutilating, if you will, killing these other animals and stuff. It seems like there's this big mass of them, like a black cloud going across the sky, and they have to kind of hide from them. And then Perrin has this internal struggle once he sees what they can do and how, even with his axe and even if he were swinging it like a madman, there were so many that you really could not stop them. There would be no way to stop them from just I don't know, like killing you. So
yeah, to be honest, it reminds me just a lot of Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah.
Just thinking about and Frodo and the group, and they're all they're all out and about, just kind of like the eyes and the ears, right? Of of the Dark One is just what it reminds me, a lot of. But yeah, I mean, it just adds to another, this whole section we're reading today. They're talking about what if a Trolloc finds us, what if a Fade finds us. We're constantly on the run. This is why we have to get to Tar Valon, where we're protected. And now it just adds to that, right? Now it's a raven. Now it's ravens that you even have to worry about. So it just adds to the idea that we're not safe.
Yeah,
where we're at right now. We're not safe from anything or anyone from where we're at right now. They're talking about light. They could do that to us. 100 ravens. They could move. Elias says. And for him to kind of say that, right? As we've kind of seen, Elias is his character. We'll just kind of get there when we get there. Yeah. And yeah, if Elias is like, we're in danger, then it's time to go.
Right. Yeah. And he does sort of say these are, that these ravens are at least kind of connected to the shadow, and that they are looking for something. It seems like they're looking for something, searching. And Perrin keeps thinking man, even if one of those things spots us, they could call the other ones and we are really in trouble here. But it's the thoughts that he has, he reminds Egwene about what happened to the rabbit, the fox, these other little animals that they see, just the way they were mutilated. And when she thinks of that, she vomits. And it's sort of it's something that keeps pushing them on. You got to keep moving. We got to keep going. But Perrin starts to think, what would he do? Would he want that type of death, this painful, agonizing, drawn out death for Egwene? Or would he make it quick?
Yeah.
And that was wow. Now you're put in that position. So what do you do? Because, from where he was sitting, there was no power. There was no nothing. Wolves wouldn't help. They would be, if this cloud of ravens came down on them, there would be no getting away. And so he thought, would I let Egwene suffer like that?
Yeah. Yeah, and they're crazy nervous too, because they keep thinking it's not even just all of them, it's one bird. What if one bird is all it'll take? What if one of them spots us? And so it just, again, it adds to that. It just adds to that fear, right? That they have. They're thinking about 100 stabbing beaks. As you said, yeah.
Well,
as
yeah. So and right here, so he's talking about his axe. He's fingering that, thinking He moved it to, his sling. That would be more use, but not enough, though. Not against 100 ravens, 100 darting targets, 100 stabbing beaks. And then she says, yeah, it's your turn to ride. She seems kind of, tired. He says, is she tired? Tell her or let her think that we'll have a chance to escape, an hour of hope, even if it's, it's this desperate or is it, or do I give her an hour of despair? Like what does he tell her? Perrin looked at Egwene again and blinked away hot tears. He touched his axe and wondered if he had the courage. In the last minutes when the ravens descended on them, when all hope was gone, would he have the courage to spare her the death the fox had died? Light make me strong. I mean, anyways, that's just something he's going to wrestle with for a while. And later on, even Elias will look at him. They're about to enter the steading, which they do here, and you can feel a change. There's a chill that kind of comes over them. But once they're settled, like Elias looks at Perrin, and it's like as if he can read his mind. And really, he says he's just reading his face. But he can tell that he could almost tell what he was thinking. He was fingering his axe, looking at Egwene, worrying, looking at the sky, thinking about the fox, the whole thing. So he can kind of tell, like, yeah, you were thinking about it, weren't you?
Yeah.
And it's put you in a spot. So yeah, I thought it was an interesting moment for him we got insight into his mind and what he was thinking, and that he was contemplating that. And in an odd way, it was a grace or a mercy that he was going to give to Egwene, because he was that worried.
He wouldn't want her to suffer. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and as we said, we talk a little bit more about the steading here, and they do. Let's see. Elias kind of explains to them that he bent over, shoulders shaking, to rest his hands on his knees. Safety, that's what. We made it, you bloody fools. No ravens will cross that line. Not one that carries the Dark One's eyes, anyway. A Trolloc would have to be driven across. There'd need to be something fierce pushing the Murdral to make them do the driving. No Aes Sedai either. The one power won't work here. They can't touch the true source. Can't even feel the source, like it vanished. Makes them itch inside, that does. Gives them the shakes, like a 7-day drunk. It's safety. So this is sort of a description of the steading. The Dark One won't go here. You can't drive a Murdral, which would then drive Trollocs into this, place. It's just it's as if it was almost like it's very different from Shadow Logoth, but it's the same idea that you couldn't drive them in here. It would take a whole lot more to do that, and even Aes Sedai don't go there because they are separated from. They cannot channel the power. So I think it's interesting, and again, Perrin and Egwene, they believe this to be like a legend, right? Like steadings are not something that they, that they've heard of Ogier, they've heard of the breaking of the world and stuff, but again, it's legend come true for them. So,
yeah. Okay, all right. Well, let's talk a little bit. Let's shift over to what's going on with Rand and Matt. So I'm going to go to about chapter 31 here. Play for your supper. So again, here these guys too are also. I just right here another line here. For a long time after leaving Whitebridge, Rand would suddenly find himself staring back down the road behind them. Sometimes he would see someone who made his breath catch, a tall, skinny man hurrying up the road, or a lanky, white-haired fellow up beside the driver on a wagon, but it was always a peddler or farmer marking their way to the market. Never Tom Maryland. Hope faded away as days passed. And so Rand is always looking behind him, right? He's always looking behind him. They're just as worried too about what's going on with them. And then you've got Matt, who's he seems to say like Matt suddenly starts to act kind of strange a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
As his hand under his coat, he always clutched the dagger from Shadow Logoth when there was danger. Rand was no longer sure if it was to protect himself or to protect the Ruby Hilted dagger, right? Like he doesn't want it stolen. Of late, Matt seemed to forget he had a bow sometimes. Yeah, so as we talked about last time, he got that dagger, and it's again seems like a pretty awful decision. With that dagger. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. It may be, last time I was starting to think, I said, maybe it's some way for Mordith or someone to maybe track them, which they do talk about a little bit as well. So just past that a little bit, no matter what it looks like, a small voice whispered in his mind. This is Rand. It isn't really home, even if it gets, even if you go into one of those houses, Tam won't be there. If he was, could you look him in the face? Now, don't you? Except for little things like where you come from and who you are. No fever dreams. He hunched his shoulders against taunting laughter inside his head. You might as well stop, the voice snickered. One place is as good as another when you aren't from anywhere, and the Dark One has you marked. So, Rand having some internal struggles, with the Dark One, just as Perrin is. We're a long way from home, man.
Yeah.
It's the easiest way to describe it. I mean, we're a long way from home. They need to get down that Camelin road ASAP.
Yeah, they do, and that's the whole thing. They know, and this is something Moraine had said earlier, is that we're going to trust that they will remember once fear kind of, once they get settled, or once you get on the way, that the initial emotions that hit them all being separated, that sense will come back to them, and that they'll be guided to Camelin. They'll remember that that's where we were headed, and that's where we should go. Man, I was trying to find this real quick, but it's this is kind of tough. So there's something interesting happens in these. I think it's chapter 31 through 34. I'm gonna read this description here. There's flashbacks inside of these chapters, according to, and this is I've like the same scene is described several times. And let me go here. Let me see. Robert Jordan says, let's see. So something that Rand says, where is it at? Yeah, it's like the order of events is a little bit kind of skewed. Here it is. Okay, Rand wondered if his whole sense of time had been skewed, and that's in the Last Village. Looks like that's in the chapter, The Last Village. But there's this scene. I'll read it. Okay. So I'm going to read the first two paragraphs here. A sudden gust swirled. This is chapter 31, Play for Your Supper. A sudden gust swirled road dust up around them, obscuring everything. He blinked and adjusted the plain, dark scarf across his nose and his mouth. Not too clean now. It made his face itch, but it kept him from inhaling dust with every breath. A farmer had given it to him, a long-faced man with grooves in his cheeks from worry. Quote, "I don't know what you're running from," he said with his anxious frown, "and I don't want to, you understand. My family." Abruptly, the farmer had dug two long scarves out of his coat pocket and pushed the tangle of wool at them. "It's not much, but here. Belong to my boys. They have others. You don't know me, understand? It's hard times." And again, these were scarves that they kind of treasured and stuff. But this same scene happens twice. And I'm going to give let's see here. I don't even know who this is. There's no really username for this, but I was on a forum, and no, it looks like, no, I can't. I don't know what it's not listed. But someone posed this question in one of the forums, because I went digging to figure out why is the same scene described twice. But in the Eye of the World, Matt and Rand split. They split off from Tom at White Bridge, and we're not sure what happens to him, right? They're traveling the Camelin Road. During that journey, there were two scenes which are exactly the same, even with almost the same wording. These two passages are, here we go. They have them for us. Looks like it's Play for Your Supper and The Dark Waits. Okay, so Sir Matt, if you want to, it's chapter 33. See if in The Dark Waits, see if you find that same description of scarves and stuff. But in both descriptions, the farmer asks Rand and Matt who they are running from. Then he says something about wanting to help them, but he can't because he might get in trouble for helping strangers. He feels bad and offers them two woolen scarves, which he pulls from his pocket. He explains that he knows it isn't much, but there is son scarves, and that's all. And that's all he feels he can give them safely. He wishes them luck. So I wondered, I think I might have mentioned this.
So here
yeah.
I can pull them both up.
You got 'em? Yeah.
So okay, so from what is this? 420, page 427. Play for your supper, right there at the beginning. I don't know what you're running from, he said with an anxious frown. I don't want to. You understand? My family. Abruptly, the farmer dug 2 long scars out of his coat pocket, pushed the tangle of wool at them. It's not much, but here belong my boys. They have others. You don't know me. Understand? It's hard times. So just what you said,
Yes.
right? Then in chapter 33,
Yeah. The dark weights.
yeah. If I was a good man, Mole said, I'd offer a couple of lads soaked to the skin a place to dry out to get warm in front of my fire. But it's hard times and strangers. I don't know what you're running from, and I don't want to. You understand? My family suddenly pulled 2 long woolen scarves, dark and thick, out of his coat pocket. It's not much, but here. Belong to my boys. They have others. You don't know me. Understand? It's hard times. Yeah, we never saw you. I mean, it's like identical.
Yeah,
It's like almost word for word the same, yeah.
Right. And so to explain, I went searching. I'm like, did anybody else come across this? Like, what's going on? And I think it's just a sequence of events thing. He's trying to do flashbacks. He's trying to show that during this time and something happens, with Rand. It seems like he and Matt, they go from village to village to make this shorter, I guess. They're playing, they're juggling. They're trying to just earn their keep, if you will, not sleep out under the bushes. They want to be sort of, whether it's in a bed or just in a loft or whatever. And they're being pursued, and we're going to come across some dark friends. But there's word not too far down the way in Whitebridge that there was a murdraw, and that there's a description even of these boys. And so it's like, as they move through here, this farmer wants to help, but he can't help too much. And what I learned is that it's a flashback scene. Although it's not, and they say this is again, where is this? Oh, this is on, cheesy cow. Steely Pips. I have no idea what this site is, but it's the only thing I could find where somebody gives an answer. So flashback scene, although not particularly well executed, judging from the amount of confusion it generates. The confusion comes partly from the fact that Jordan doesn't do anything special to mark the flashback, such as using an italic font, like Matt's flashback and of something else later on in the series we won't talk about. Subtle changes of verb tense are the only clues. Also, the whole sequence from 31 to 34 contains not only a long flashback, but another flashback nestled inside the first one. And I just think it's meant to be, this is, again, a wheel of time. And time and sequence of events here, Rand even saying that everything seemed a little skewed. And it's just sort of this odd moment, and he creates this sort of table. Maybe I'll share this over on Patreon just so folks can kind of see it. But the sequence of event, it's very different. It's like they start talking about their journey on the Camelin Road and this farmer who wanted to loan them scarves. Then they stop and they flash back to a time right after Whitebridge, and he tells a story kind of leading into Arian, like this little village, and then into Four Kings. So... and they end up going to the Dancing Cartman with the skinny innkeeper, and there's Darkfriends there. A guy named Goad is there. So, it's that's sort of what we get. We get that whole backstory. And really the big takeaway from that is that they believe first of all, that we're done with that point, just the idea that there's this weird sequence of events. And I have a theory on why he did this and why Rand in particular says that his time seems skewed to him and things seem kind of, a little thrown off. And it's sort of like his way of saying, yeah, I just sort of messed around with that a little bit and went back and forth, and it is what it is. It's a little bit of a mystery still, I think, but I have an idea, and we'll talk about later in the series when we get more information on our characters. Because I think something happens to Matt and Rand. I mean, Sir Matt, that Matt has the dagger, and he's being affected by that dagger. We see Perrin is affected by the wolves, and right. Rand is he's got this growing burden or something in him, like this. He's desperate to get back to Egwene, and he wants to save the people in like his Two Rivers family and friends, by going on this mission, but yeah, he's got this heavy burden too, and he's also trying to help his friend Matt out, who seems to be suffering. And they're being pursued by Darkfriends. They just lost Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a moment where he's extremely highly stressed, and there's no one. There's no Moraine, no one else to lean on. Matt needs to lean on him, and so Rand sort of like is elevated into this position where he's got to, he's got to keep it all together. So it's a tense moment for him as we get into this, and yeah.
Well, and it's real quick. I just want to pull something up here, right? So Rand's dealing with all of this stuff. Matt with the dagger, just a line I had highlighted here I wanted to bring up, just almost out of nowhere, right? They're just like one afternoon, it's like Matt, they just kind of stop, and Matt's like, why are you so anxious to sell it? I found it, don't you think I'd like to keep it? And it's like, what are you talking about? So he's got like this going on, about the dagger. But then there's a line a little bit further into chapter 31, right? Let me find just kind of the best place to pull this. Dark-haired, big-eyed, and pretty. This is what they're doing with Else, right? Else grinned, at them, and I just think it's funny because then you get to this line right here. As we're talking about parallels and what's going on, Perrin would know how to handle this. He thought he'd make some offhanded comment, and pretty soon she'd be laughing at his jokes instead of mooning around where her father can see. And so it's just. All these lines that we see that have these parallels, Perrin is sitting there saying, I wish Rand are here to know how to talk to girls.
Yeah.
Well, then you got Rand sitting here saying, I wish I knew where Perrin was to help me talk to these girls. Right. And I think that's another big thing. It's, it's not just, Moraine's not there. It's always been Matt, Perrin, and Rand.
Yeah.
The three of them together. And sometimes you need that, right? It's kind of like, jokingly, like it's an Oreo, right? You've got the two shells with the middle that kind of holds it together. And, once you take off one of those pieces of Oreo, well, then it's no longer an Oreo, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you need all three of them to kind of balance and complement each other. Sometimes it doesn't work with just two.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. You need all the pieces to make it work, and that's what's interesting about Ba'alzamon showing up in their dreams, those three specifically, and then trying to sort through them. Yeah. Okay, so just a little bit here about some interesting things as they get into Four Kings, and again, they're traveling, they're just trying to make their way. They're looking for an inn. They can't really find one. Finally, the fourth inn they come across is the Dancing Cartman. And you meet this character who is this, let's see. He was a bony man with long, stringy hair to his shoulders, turned a scowl at them as they came through the door. The first slow peal of thunder rumbled across Four Kings. What do you want? He was rubbing his hands on a greasy apron that hung to his ankles. Rand wondered if more grime was coming off the apron was coming from the apron or on the man's hands. He was the first skinny innkeeper Rand had seen. Well, speak up, buy a drink, or get out. Do I look like do I look like a rarey show? Flushing, Rand launched into a spiel he had perfected in the inns before. So he's like, I play the flute, my friend juggles, and really this character, his name is Hake. So he's like, he ends up kind of telling them that really it doesn't really matter how good they are or whether they're good at juggling or what have you. The lot that's here, this is sort of a grimy, like it's not the best inn. Like all the other ones were full or they they couldn't get in. So this is like their last resort, and that's never really a good thing. And later on, there's a funny thing, just sort of in all the inns they stop at. You pay attention to the size of the person running the inn. It's and try to make a connection between whether being fat is a good thing or being skinny is a good thing. I don't know. So, okay, but yeah, he allows them to play, and sort of earn their keep here. But when he walks in, he notices that Rand has that heron marked blade.
Blade.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's also noticing like their flute and everything else that they're just interesting. They're younger, and he's got this really, I don't know, devilish kind of look, right? As he's looking at these two, and he's promising them food, whatever, get up there, do your thing. He's also got his two thugs, right? His two bouncers that are there, and really, Rand and Matt are desperate at this point. They're desperate. They just need a place to sleep and some food. So they know it looks shady. They know this guy is staring them down and looking at their stuff, and it seems bad, but they stick it out, which I think is interesting. And yeah, you already brought up kind of the songs and the things that they, some of those connections that were made to the Tuathon and just the different naming of songs. But yeah, Hake is just not a good dude, and he is. They're kind of, they go back and forth. They eventually arrange sort of like a place to stay. And another character, let me go back to my doc here, shows up. And this is where we sort of get like, people are, we know that Murdral and Trollocs have been after them, but now we have like an innkeeper who's interested in their stuff. We have Darkfriends who kind of show up and seem to be, we can assume that they're Darkfriends, I guess. Well, yeah, I mean, learn more about them, but like they're here to take stuff from them. There's this character Goad who shows up, right? Mm-hmm. So Rand Dream, let's see. Let's see the time. Oh, and actually here's something funny just to sort of prove that whole sequence of events was like a flashback. This whole, what we're talking about here, in the descriptions, if you go to the wiki, and if you go to like other places like Dragonmount and Tarvalon Library and stuff like that, they all mention that time moves back to the night at the Dancing Cartman. So they're referring back to this night when they staggered away in the rain. Rand dreams that he's back in the Four Kings. He's Four Kings. He walks into the Dancing Cartman. Goad is there, only recognizable from his clothes. So this guy Goad who walks in has, what does he got? Like slippers. It was raining outside. It was muddy, but yet he comes in these soft clothes. Looks kind of plump, and he has this same sort of look in his eye, the same glint that Hake does, and he's staring at these guys wanting something. So they sort of know that two guys are after him essentially. And long story short, they go up to when they're done at the end of the night, they are up there in what is almost like a cell. It's like this far back, like down the hall. They're back in this back room. There are bars on the windows. Remember that? There's like bars on the windows, and they're trying to get some sleep. And I think Hake is like, they think he's waiting for them to fall asleep so they can come in and rob them and steal their stuff. But yeah, it was like they get almost like attacked, and lightning strikes, man. Lightning strikes and like saves them. So I think that's sort of It's like what caused that lightning to strike? Like, was it just coincidence? Why did it come at this time of need for Rand and Matt? And it sort of helps get them away. I mean, I really think it's a part of why everything, the sequence, the time is skewed, and why we are doing a flashback and dreaming and thinking back to this time where he was trying to where they were trying to get stuff stolen from them. Whether they were trying to get you, but the people were trying to steal stuff from them. So I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah, well, the whole bit with the lightning, right? It's kind of interesting if you're just looking at the line, because they talk about you always say like light save us, right?
Yeah.
Well, kind of did in this situation, right? And that's the only light there is at the time. They say like there was no light save the lightning, right? They can't even see until there's lightning. So I just kind of made that connection. I thought that was kind of like interesting, is that they're always saying light save us, right?
Yeah.
And then boom, lightning actually literally saves them. So light quite literally saves them, and so. Nothing, luck, right? He says that the light's own, is it, shivering, just the lightning, right? And so it's just, I just thought that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's like you kind of wonder, right? Yeah. Light save us. And then sure as heck it did. Yeah. Well, and then after that, I mean, for right now, we're gonna leave like the lightning bit alone. I mean, there's something mysterious about that, right? There's something.
Oh, absolutely.
Is it coincidence? I mean, what's like? It's what do you think? It's not coincidence that lightning hits and just when they need it. I mean,
I don't think so. I mean, I don't necessarily know what caused it, but I mean, right now it's seeming like in this section that we're reading as we're getting further and further, it seems like magic and powers, pairing with the wolves, are starting to become more and more and more prevalent, and so I don't know. I mean, I'm sure in some way it's all connected, but obviously I'm not far enough in yet to find out how it is or if there is something that's like behind it all or whatever. Yeah. But I mean, clearly, I mean, it's not just like, oh, there's bounty hunters after them or there's men after them. The Trollocs Dark Ones fades. And there's magic on the other side too, right? I mean, I think that the wolves and Perrin, that's definitely going to be a big something going forward. That's not just a coincidence. And then I'm not saying like the lightning. I don't know yet, but I mean, clearly there's something with it.
Well, and here's the thing. I know what I can tell you, and I can tell you what I first thought when I was reading this, because I remember very clearly like this happening, and I thought somebody is this. This is just my thought, and I'm not. I had several thoughts actually about this. I thought either it's just coincidence, or there's something about. Matt has the dagger and there's some power to that. I thought, well, shoot, like maybe maybe this dagger's got some extra powers. And then I thought maybe somebody's looking out after them. I mean, actually at first, the very first thing I thought when they're all in all the confusion, I thought, okay, these guys that are trying to break the door down and Goad and Hake and all these guys, I mean, just all the bad stuff that's happening. I thought the Dark One is striking. Like he's striking at them. We've seen him. He's trying to strike and get at them in his dreams. And I thought, okay, maybe it's that. So it's like it could be all sorts of different things, and it's just not. We don't know yet, really what happens. So we do know that like afterwards they're kind of dazed and confused. I mean, lightning literally struck right next to them, kind of broke through that the iron bars and into killed the people who were trying to, pursue them or get into their room, and they get away. They're able to kind of continue on, and they're sick. Rand is sick for a little bit, but he's also trying to help Matt, and they're both kind of helping each other. They enter a stable, and there's a woman who tries to like she lunges for Matt, right? But her dagger it gets stuck in a post. And it blackens the wood around it. So then, he has his ruby dagger, and he ends up, right there at her throat. Rand convinces him not to kill her, and instead they lock her up, right? And she's this dark friend. And it's from there, and we're going to talk more. We're kind of saving some of the dark friend conversation for, not saving, but we're just kind of running out of time, and we'll save it for our extended edition. But these dark friends are starting to get to Matt a little bit, to the point where even in the next chapter, the final chapter here, he like accuses somebody of being a dark friend, and causing a little bit of a stir in one of these towns. So there's a lot of that going on. They just feel constantly pursued, and there's no rest for these guys. But they do get on where we kind of leave them is they're on the road again to Camelin. They're with another farmer, and they're being told about Camelin. They're being told about the false dragon, who is being brought to Camelin, and Queen Morghese, who has an Aes Sedai advisor, Elida, a daughter and a son, Elaine and Gawain are there, right? So yeah, just interesting stuff that's being told to them about this place that they're going. New names that we're getting. We don't know much about these people or what's going on there, but we know that we're about to go into this major city, sort of the capital of Andor, and we're hopefully going to meet Moraine and Lan and everybody, the whole crew. But yeah, they barely got away from those guys, and it literally was the lightning strike from the sky. And afterwards, there's a bunch of confusion, and there's some sickness and some dark friends that still try to grab them. And you can only imagine, like Matt, and I bet you saw this too. Like Matt seems to be getting more and more paranoid as they go. Like he's he's being not driven mad, but I mean, he doesn't trust anybody. He keeps to himself more. He gives like the stares that he was giving people. It didn't in the Two Rivers, had he looked at like a villager the way that he was looking at them, say in the Four Kings, it would have been off-putting. But like here, I mean, there's just so much going on. They're further into the nation of Andor and along a very busy road, and it doesn't affect them as much. But yet, it's still noticeable. And these two guys do stick out like a sore thumb. So I think they're easily tracked for multiple reasons. I'll say that multiple reasons.
Right. And the other thing is real quick here, just as we're kind of finishing up here, going over these chapters, as they're on their, pulling into Camelin, essentially, Rand is having another bad dream. Just to kind of tie it all in, the very last thing that happens to him is there's a raven that lands on his chest and says, "You are mine," and then stabs him in his eye. And then he wakes up. And so there's another dream. We keep getting all these dreams. And there's another one kind of, so be sure to definitely go over that again if that's something that you're like, oh, as we talked about the ravens and stuff earlier. So
yeah. And one more thing too. I mean, because there's so much that we can't cover. We'd be on here for 3-4 hours. But and I like this because this is we've said from the start, this is going to be our first. This is Matt's first initial just dive into this. We want to get through it, be exposed to it, and eventually we'll come back to all this. Later on, but we really want to try to get through as much of this content as we can before the show starts and just really get through the series as a whole. It's such a good series, and we just don't have time on the podcast to hit every point because, for example, I mean, one of the things that they talk about the Eye of the World in these chapters, and I don't want to
Arthur Hawkwing.
Yeah, Arthur Hawkwing was mentioned, and sort of like the statue that they see. What does that mean? Like, what time period is that? Why was his statue sort of torn down? Or not torn down, but like why some of them were like I think Elias talks about that. And then Rand is in a dream, right? He's told that the Eye of the World will never serve him, and then he's marked. He marks him, like Balsamon in his dream and stuff. So it just, he sees what happens to Goad, like this dark friend. He sees what happens to him and what happens when you either fail the Dark One or you don't do his bidding or whatever. Bad things happen, but yet you're, come serve me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Don't mind what I'm doing. I'm over here, doing these terrible things to this servant of mine who failed me, but come serve me. You'll be fine. Just don't, Yeah. So anyways, there was a lot. I mean, although this wasn't, there's not a lot of like really big epic moments. There's a lot of tension and suspense building, I guess. They're being chased. All these different groups, and so really, I guess Egwene and Perrin, and then Matt and Rand. But the suspense is building, and we're getting closer to Camelin, and that's really where we're going to have a lot of fun. A lot of really cool stuff happens in Camelin, and so I wanted to stop just short of that. So next week when we get into this, we'll have a lot to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right, man. Well, hey, you want to read one of our messages we have here? We do have a message here.
Yeah, for sure. So, let's see here. This is, Lady Heather Reed actually sent us something. So, hello, Sir Ezra. First of all, I wanted to thank you so much. I'm enjoying your podcast. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I thought that I would share my thoughts on Mashadar, or Mordeth. Mashadar is an evil that is not of the Dark One. I believe it started with Mordeth's corruption of Eredhal people and feathered there for so long that it took on a life of its own. And I think, we did talk a little bit just about I think we did. I can't remember if we did or not, but I think we talked about how Mordeth, when he came here to this place, he eventually was advisor to the king. So this is, again, going back to last week. And again, we can keep talking about this character for a while because Matt has the dagger, and that is something that he took from Mordeth, and it's causing issues, as Matt will say. Yeah. It's not a good thing. No. But Eredhal, the people there, his presence and that corruption, it seems to kind of take on a life of its own. I think that is why it cannot spread, and Mordeth is stuck there. Remember when they were down there in that chamber, and there were the treasure. Well, he actually told them all he wanted them to do was, he was a treasure hunter. He wanted them to help take some of the treasure just to the border, just outside the city, to where the pack horses were, right? And then from there, we're good. We're good. Like that's it. Then I'll give you guys the rest, or I'll give you whatever I can't carry, or pack up. It's sort of, like it's like as if he is trapped, in that city, because you start to kind of wonder, why would he want someone to take treasure, help him transport treasure out of the city, and then why is Moraine so upset, or so concerned about whether someone took something? And she snaps. Remember that she just snaps on them and wants to know, did he give you anything? Did you take anything from him? And it's funny because Matt's the one talking, and he doesn't say a word. So yeah. So again, I agree with her that the pattern is kind of setting this up, for like, that's something that Mordeth is trying to do. He is trying to lure someone into, it's a trap, take something out of the city. So let's say we know this, right? We know Matt has taken a dagger out of the city. So what does that mean? Sir Matt, what do you think? I mean, like, he's taken a dagger out of the city. Mashadar was that fog, that evil fog that was moving around, right? And it seems to be, why doesn't it just keep spreading across the entire region or whatever? Why is it bound to the city?
Yeah, it seems contained. Just from what, just kind of from what Moraine said. And didn't she actually say that he can't leave this place?
I think maybe she did.
I think I'm pretty sure she very specifically says that in the last. Oh, let me see. I'm pretty sure she said that he was not allowed to. He couldn't leave.
Yeah. Right. So yeah. Anyways, these are all great thoughts, and I really like just the idea of thinking about, like, what is it that that Mashadar is, and because I think I asked that question, sort of like what is it necessarily, and it is sort of this essence, or these people who were corrupted, and like maybe that corruption is what that Mashadar, has turned into. So I don't know. Very interesting. So yeah, and there's more. There's some stuff that I will not let Sir Matt read in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
that you can hear me skipping over something.
Well, you don't. I don't. In our we have Ezra and I have a shared doc, and he's reading this off an email, so I didn't even get to see it. So I'm like, okay, I guess there must be a little bit of spoilery stuff in there. So
yeah. Well, and I like to just to mention that when people do send us stuff, I want you to know that I am reading it, and I want you guys to be mentioned on the show. One of the big things that Sir Matt and I try to do is we want it to be, you have a voice. This is a place where you can kind of talk to us. The book club. It's a hangout where we can kind of get together and converse and go back and forth on ideas and stuff. And so it's crazy because, I in talking to Heather and responding to some of her comments too on Patreon, and then I'll respond to this email. I mean, it is actually so hard. We've never done anything like this. First of all, we've never done something where I have read the series multiple times now, and Sir Matt hasn't, and so it's such a cool thing for me to see what you're learning, and for me to slow down and actually go back and look at this and think, oh yeah, what are some things that we need to slow down and hone in on, and then also I'm finding all sorts of like foreshadowing and clues that I did not catch even in my third read through. I'm just like, what? So you come back to this and you're like, there are layers upon layers, as you mentioned, like just the color of the paint. The fact that in Four Kings, one thing I noticed is that I read the line earlier in the podcast where they heard the first sound of thunder rumbling, right? So it's setting up this lightning strike that's going to happen later on. And there's layers to even that, right? Which we can talk about. But yeah, so Heather, thank you very much. I love talking about the series and Mordeth and the power, and it being maybe something separate, and just sort of the mystery there, because it's something that Sir Matt did catch on to, and it's something that when we talk outside of the podcast, we've talked about on numerous occasions. He's just like, what is this? Who is this? Is this guy? Does he come back? Is he a big deal? Like, did he get out? Is he like we talked about essence transfer? Is he a part of that dagger? The whole thing. So, yeah, really cool. Oh, okay. All right, man. So I guess, okay, yeah. Prediction wise, I guess.
Well, we've made it to Camelin, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously that's where I think we're gonna be. Yeah, I'm trying to think how many chapters are we covering next time. Next time we're covering.
Let me see.
Around 9 chapters.
Yeah.
So obviously it's gonna be Matt and Rand are in Camelin, but I don't know that it's not. I don't think it's gonna be like everyone meeting up at Rivendell to get ready to go out to, like, on the Fellowship. I'm not entirely certain. It doesn't seem like Moraine and Nynaeve and Egwene and Perrin. I don't think all 3 groups are meeting up there. So it is possible that they have to move. That Matt and Rand have to move on even without them. So we've been racing to Camelin, but that doesn't necessarily mean we get to Camelin it's going to be safe. That would certainly be interesting. It's like, hey, we're okay, man, as soon as we get there we're safe, and then we get there, nope, this did not go the way we thought it was. This did not go the way we thought it was going to go, because it's not like Nynaeve and Moraine are there yet to kind of welcome them in. I mean, even if they get there, they're still just strangers in this big huge city, and no one knows who they are. So that's kind of where I think the story's going to go, somewhat in that direction.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, it's good. Do you think we'll see? Are there any characters who we have seen up until this point that we're following our main cast, and we know outside, I guess, of like Matt, Perrin, and Rand, and Nynaeve, and Egwene, Lan, and Moraine? Outside of those characters, do you see any character who we've come across that we might come across again later on? And I guess right now we're still traveling with Elias.
Right? You mean in the near, like, the total future?
Yeah, I guess
Well, I mean in the total future, yeah. I mean, there's definitely some characters I think that we will come back to, but certainly anybody that we've run into recently.
I guess it's tough in this because the only new people who we really encounter are like the innkeeper,
right?
And then we encounter like the Tuatha'an, right? We come across them.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't, not anybody that we've seen like recently. Like, I don't think we're gonna run into Mordeth again for a while. I mean, we are definitely running into Mordeth again at some point,
Okay.
obviously.
Yeah, okay.
But I don't think it's anytime soon.
Yeah.
Maybe not even in this book. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah. I
mean, Min. Like, I think we'll run into Min again. She seemed like she was definitely some sort of like giving some sort of prophecy or something. So I think we'll run into her, again at some point. But I don't know if anybody specifically anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Awesome. So yeah, we'll just kind of let's see. Oh yeah, so I've been keeping a part. Well, let's see. The power. Yeah. So I've been trying to keep track of your predictions, right? Haven't I down here? So Matt predicts that Rand and Egwene will hook up.
That still could happen. I'm still holding out. They just got to get back together, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said I think we're going to learn a lot more about Matt, Perrin, and Rand. Nynaeve, power struggle with Moraine.
That's still going on.
Continue.
That's still going on. Yeah.
Okay, and then really just I'm going to put here Camelin. Maybe that Camelin is dangerous.
Yeah.
Right. You kind of thinking that. All right. Okay.
Yeah, and then the dagger. We talked about the dagger too.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Just trying to keep track here of some things, and we'll kind of revisit these and see how you did. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So real quickly, just thanks again, guys. It was kind of a longer episode than I intended it to be, but wow,
that's okay.
Well, once we started getting into the chapter, it's just where we went point by point. We had things we wanted to pull out and talk about. And there's just so much. It's just so epic. Here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, I just have to say I love these characters, and I love the journey that they're on, and I love how, like for me, guys, and I hopefully you'll join in on Patreon and talk to us and some of the members that are in there, because there's such whether it's your first time or you've read this many times, I think you can get something out of like the energy. And I wish you guys could, and we're going to try to read more of our text messages to you guys maybe on the show, because there's times where like Sir Matt is reading and comes across something, he'll quote it and he'll send it to me, and I'm just like, let's go. like you're there, like something new happened. It's a big deal, and it's super cool, and we get a chance to kind of discuss in between recordings and then bring that here, and it's just so much fun, and there's so much to cover. But Yeah, so it's exciting. So again, you can follow us on Twitter at the Horn of Valir, our Facebook page, the Horn of Valir as well. Over on Patreon, patreon.com/the Horn of Valir. All those links are down in the description. And thank you to everybody who's gone and given us a review on iTunes. Like I said earlier, this is different for us. We've never done something where like it's new for one person and one person's kind of holding back, and I'm trying to not spoil things because I already feel like, God, it's actually a big responsibility. I'm sitting here going like, shoot, I almost spoiled something for you in book 2 just before we started recording today. Remember that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I had to stop myself.
Well, and the tricky part is that like I'll get to something where I'm like, oh, I think this is happening, but I put you in this awkward position where you're like, yeah, man, I don't know.
Yeah, I've started. Yeah,
you can't really say it, right?
I've started practicing more of like just a I don't know, like this emotionless sort of like, yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah. Almost as if like you did it. But then I also want to have that same sort of like energy. But it's when you ask me those specific questions. But yeah, well, whatever. I don't know.
Right. Well, I remember when I got to Mordeth and I was like, yeah, I sent you a text message, and also my brothers, who have both read the series a bunch of time, and I'm just like, I'm just like, Matt just met Mordeth, or Matt just took a dagger from Mordeth. Probably not a great idea. And like all three of you, both my brother Jeremy, who's our Aiel clan chief, and my brother Nick, like all three of you guys are just like, oh yeah, that's definitely like a thing. Yeah, like I don't want to say, but yeah, it's you're obviously right, and that there's definitely something going on there.
Yeah. So, anyways, I hopefully people will join in the fun, and I'm gonna start screenshotting more of those conversations that we have, and maybe posting some on Patreon just so you guys can have. You can see the reaction. You can see the exclamation marks, like the what? Like this is a classic Sir Matt. Like, what is this? You could
screenshot our text messages and put them in the Patreon. It's unfortunate because I with Ben the Knee, our Game of Thrones podcast, and Hang Out, our Star Wars one, like we're all, I'm not crazy active. We're not crazy active in the group, but we're definitely active, and I'm definitely liking and commenting. Yeah. But I can't do that here. Because everyone's just gonna completely spoil it for me, and I am doing. I mean, it's not like the show is out right now yet, so there's not like tons of just spoilers out there. And like to go find a Wheel of Time spoiler, I would have to go look for it. It's not like something that people are actively really talking about on Twitter right now. So like it's pretty easy to avoid spoilers.
Yeah, unless you just do not log into, the Twitter account, because every time I'm on there, I'm like, oh man, this is why Sir Matt cannot be on Twitter logged in, because I just scroll down there and I just start laughing because it's a lot of times it's just like jokes and stuff that people are making about characters. I'm like, well, that totally spoils like what happens to Matt's character or Perrin, and you're like, oh shoot,
Right.
So it's just one of those things like, thank God you're not logged in there. And also, I am still on the lookout for Darkfriends influencing me and influencing Sir Matt. Okay? I know they're out there, and I know that they're coming for us, and I think that's all part of the fun, but watch out. I'm a Blade Master. Okay?
That's okay. All right. Well, hey, we want to thank you guys for answering the call. In our next episode, we will be discussing The Eye of the World, chapters 35 through 44. And in our extended edition on Patreon, we're going to be discussing Darkfriends and Arthur Hawkwind.
Yeah. If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a message at thehornofvalir@gmail.com.
We will see you March 1st, and remember that the grave is no bar to our call.